Wednesday, August 31st, 8:11 p.m. Listen to Gregory Mandarino. I just want to follow what's going on in the Wall Street, financial markets, the Fed. There's complete insanity it's just vibrating like a Mount Vesuvius or something.
It's just massively undervalued. And this whole thing, forget the stock market crash, forget the debt bubble bursting. Yeah, that's it. That's the end all here, absolutely. And it's definitely debt market is unstable, no doubt. But it's the financial system that is really going to be the one that's going to get everybody globally. That's going to lock up. We have a liquidity crisis developing. It's getting worse. Trust me on this one, and I know you do. If we continue to see this kind of action in the debt market and we get that implosion, which we all know is coming, it's over. No amount of heroin pumped into this market is going to make any difference, and that's the bottom line, and that's what they want. Okay, because a new system is coming. A new system. You all know that. All right, look, I'm out of here.
Okay, the new system is what he's referring to as the Great Reset. And that's what I see absolutely is going to happen. There's just no way around it because this is all being done by design. And the American people are comatose. I mean, they're just watching, I don't know, Joe Rogan or Russell Brand or Stephen Colbert or Bill Maher or some rock and roll stars, whoever it is, and they're living in a fantasy world, which is the what I want to get to in a minute. I just wanted to mention one thing first of all: the coincidence between Stephen Hawking's dying words about what he foresaw coming, how they coincide with biblical prophecy. He just uses different names. Like he sees the danger of AI and aliens, that aliens will come, but they aren't going to be friendly. They're going to be our enemies. These are all in the book of Revelations under different names, and that the planet will die in a heat death. It's flame up, flame out. It's all pessimistic. The only thing he differs, he says there's no God, and God's explained by gravity, which is that's Lucifer, is called the force. May the force be with you, is referred to in prophecy, is this evil, demonic fortresses or forces. Is the word in the King James. So anyway, scientists of the caliber of Hawking and these theoretical physicists, like the ones doing the Large Hadron Collider, they're worshiping Shiva or Baphomet and doing satanic ceremonies with full symbolic imagery, Masonic imagery, and everything else at their opening ceremonies. And it's like very directly tied in to occult religion, Freemasonry, Buddhism, Hinduism, one world religion. The Pope, Antichrist. That's the end times prophecy, is that there'll be a one world religion. Everybody will be worshiping the beast system, and the Great Reset. So what would I want to see first? I'll just get into what I've written. This is the future is now, or the future of an illusion, or the future is an illusion. That's a reference to Freud's The Future of an Illusion, which is this psychoanalyst who thought he was a scientist, wrote that the religion has no future because there's no God. It's just a continuation of the Nietzschean position, whatever you want to call it. Here's a quote from Stanislaw Lem, it's Summa Technologica, 1964. He uses the word phantomatics, and phantomatics is basically virtual reality. Okay, phantomatics, and he's seeing it. It's in his visionary sci-fi mind. Phantomatics appears to be a sort of pinnacle towards which sundry forms and technologies of entertainment converge. There are already houses of illusion, ghost houses, fun houses. Disneyland is in fact one big primitive pseudo-phantomat. Apart from these variations permitted by law, there are illicit ones. This is the situation in Jean Genet's balcony, where the site of pseudo-phantomization is a brothel. Phantomatics has a certain potential to become an art. This could therefore lead it to split into artistically valuable product and mediocre kitsch. As with movies of various types of art, the menace of phantomatics is, however, incomparably greater than that represented by debased cinema. He's referring to porn or X-rated films, just as the kitsch is the porn art. He's kind of seeing it in the Warhol stuff that's showing up. Maybe, this is around mid 60s, and if it's written in 64, it's just before the explosion of the counterculture and all that cinema of porno and art combined. For due to its specificities, Phantomatics offers the kind of experience which, in its intimacy, is equaled only in a dream. Okay? So the Phantomatics Lem envisioned in 1964 has been available to the masses for a while now, right? The VR helmets. When Lem was writing the first primitive model of the VR headset, it already arrived 3 years earlier. The term virtual reality was coined in 1987 by Jaron Lanier. During 2016 and 2017, virtual reality hit the commercial market, and this is when mass psychosis arrived. All hell broke loose when those VR helmets hit, and you could go into a shopping mall or whatever and have people not knowing what planet they were on, or you could buy them and take them home and not know what planet. So you could be in company, you could be with other people. Some places you'd see what they were seeing up on a projected screen above. So this is pure psychosis. If you have a three-dimensional simulated environment that's perfectly convincing, you're, for all intents and purposes, inside that illusion. I've never worn one. That's why I'm describing. I don't want to wear one. It's bad enough video games. I don't even, video games give me a headache. So I'm observing it from the outside. What Lem is describing, the deleterious effects on the human brain. The brains of anyone programmed using them with whatever fantasy reality they prefer to migrate into is dangerous because are in psychosis. Take LSD is another form of it, right? These lucid dream states have always been available to humans through shamanic and occult practices. The introduction of hallucinogenic drugs to college students and military personnel by the CIA, along with entrepreneurial chemists like Owsley Stanley. He was the supplier in San Francisco with blue cheer. Acid was named after, the group was named after one of the different products that came from Owsley Stanley. He made these states made available by ingesting a pill or blotter acid, or you could have liquid form in dosing people's drinks, what have you. The critical difference between shamanistic occult techniques of lucid dream states and dream worlds delivered by technology and consciously chosen by the consumer to satisfy their every desire is that the LSD hallucinogen user or occult practitioner is aware that neither the mundane world they exist in nor the hallucinated worlds they experience are made by them. Virtual reality experiences seamlessly deliver the illusion to their owners that they are gods who have the power to create whatever reality they choose to live in. So the illusion takes over their brain completely. I mean, the more you're in them, the more you're unaware of the real world at all. LSD, you're aware of the real world. You know, you don't have a helmet on your head, so you're locating yourself with your senses, and you're not programming it. So there's you're still in a natural state, in a natural relationship to the environment. With a VR helmet, you're in artificial intelligence has taken over your brain. You no longer are yourself. You're AI programmed. You think you're in control of it, but actually you're not in control of it. And it becomes more and more dystopic, and the dystopia becomes addictive in the same way you saw with LSD with the Jim Morrison or Rolling Stones, where it becomes increasingly dark and sinister and demonic. That's what I'm getting at. As Lem foresaw in 1964, phantomatics means the creation of a situation in which there are no exits from the created fiction to the real world. No exit. It's the Jean-Paul Sartre novel that concluded hell is other people is the point of Sartre's No Exit. As extraordinarily prescient as his perceptions were, what Lem didn't foresee in his book was that the minds of the users of virtual reality helmets would be taken over by artificial intelligence, as they would lose all control they assumed they had over the nature of these experiences. Like you're going to go into a particular world, you get to choose the parameters, but once you enter into that world, it's the computer, it's the brain of artificial intelligence that you're lost. You lose your mind, in effect, and you lose your mind to the occult and to the demonic, and it's dragon worlds and dungeons and dragon worlds, torture chambers, and the lucid dreams are coming from a addictive intelligence that's not human. I call that Satan or the beast system, which has to do with the Great Reset, which Gregory Mannarino was referring to, and the World Economic Forum, and CF, Council on Foreign Relations, and Bilderbergs, and the Davos, Switzerland, Brain Trust, and the Federal Reserve, and all these European central banks are linked into, and Americans are completely passive anyway. They're couch potatoes, and they're fighting these, there's no political opposition because most people don't follow anything other than fake news, corporate news of one sort or another. And this centralized control, centralized control centers are feeding these fantasies of more or less continuous, seamless, nonstop, even though so many people think, oh, I choose. Well, no, people don't actually choose. They follow these algorithms, and the algorithms are based on their pleasure, what gives them the most pleasure. It's not set up for thinking. You know, if you're watching movies, you're not thinking, you're experiencing. Your mind is those thoughts. So you're being continually programmed by whatever you're watching. Let's put it this way: back in the '60s, is what you are what you eat. Well, you're not. You aren't what you eat. You're what you watch. You are what you watch. What you watch, you imitate, and eventually that becomes you. You identify with what you're watching. You think that's you. You're creating yourself. And particularly young people and young children, they're imitating, and they want to fit in, and they want to be part of a social group. So they choose their social network, and that becomes reality. They're tuned out from reality completely. And it's always entertaining, which reality isn't entertaining if you're living in it and you're in a people that are homeless, people that are in war, all of these people, and that's coming soon to a district near you. The insanity of liberal socialist Marxist theologians would provide an educational system encouraging 3 and 4-year-old children to not only indulge in whatever sexual fantasies that excites them, and available surgical technologies would deliver them physical bodies to accommodate their every desire. The sexual utopia of the free love 60s generation has created, through the technologies they invented, that's the generation that created all this technology, the ones that are on the LSD drugs. So it comes, which are demonic and so forth. And so the programming and everything. I remember hearing Jordan Peterson say something, well, it depends on who's programming. It's neutral. It's not neutral, Jordan Peterson. It's not neutral at all, any more than people on LSD are neutral. The drug itself is creating this mind control, and that's why the CIA was using it in MK Ultra program. It was being developed by Gestapo and CIA, the Gestapo who were ferried over through the Vatican, the Satan system of the popes who were supporting Hitler and supporting Mussolini. And lots of Christians, not all Christians, but you had the Satan system just goes back and back and back in history, and you have to trace the spiritual reality of this stuff. So many people are atheists. It's like, what? Like a Stephen Hawking. Well, okay, you're not paying much attention then. You're looking at physical material that doesn't exist. So it was created. Something can't come from nothing. That's my basic position. Something doesn't come from nothing. God has always existed. That's the mystery, and always will exist, and is immutable. And so is this battle between God and the devil. So if you're a Christian of the kind that I am, you see these things really clearly down through the ages, and as they manifest, and as they're manifesting now in terms of end times biblical prophecy. At this point, the descriptive term perversion no longer has any meaning to the liberal or liberated mind. What would be perverse? Bestiality isn't perverse. I mean, it used to be. It was also legal. I mean, you had societies in states in the U.S. and you had them in Europe. But this human hybrid forms, that's new. Cloning, sheep, incest, anything that they're not. What was considered a perversion and a sign of mental illness in the late 19th century now is healthy. It's, you're liberated if you explore every perverse. Perverse simply means to distort, like to pervert the truth, pervert the truth of who you are, to pervert scripture, to change its meaning. So that's the sense in which I'm using the word perversion. Like men are men. We get to the point where you say, you have a black Supreme Court justice who doesn't know what a woman is. Oh, I'm not going to commit myself to, we don't know what a woman is. Well, you're in an insane asylum at that point. If you have a Supreme Court justice figure and a political party that believes there are 100 different genders, you just have to just keep inventing them. I can't even imagine what this, where that goes or what it means. I don't know who can, but I do know that it was considered mental illness by Sigmund Freud. It's considered mental illness by all the Kraft Ebing and the people studying mental illness. Well, why? Because they were in insane asylums. And that's where these people are now, or should be. So instead, they're on what else but pharmaceutical drugs? And is that making them sane? No, it's making them more and more insane, meaning delusional, meaning divorced from reality, meaning unaware of who they are or what they are, or that there is a God, or that there is a purpose to human life other than pleasuring yourself. In a continuous state of autoerotic excitement. A couple of years ago, I had an acquaintance who believed himself a Trump supporting Buddhist. He was a hardcore porn addict. I mean, this guy, like, he's a Buddhist, and he's, I don't want to hear about your internet porn connection. I don't want to hear about all the group sex sessions, any of this stuff. That isn't Buddhism. Where do you get the idea that well, of course, he got the idea from American Buddhism. So his Buddhist practice had been to participate in sex orgies. His meditation, what do you meditate? He said, oh, I meditate on peace. Well, that must be interesting, a peaceful sex orgy. Like everybody will just have a daisy chain of, love, love, love. Love the ones. And this guy is married, okay? And his wife is a Jehovah's Witness. And you can't make this stuff up. And mentally ill, is on medications and doesn't work a job because she's getting welfare paid for by the state. And who wouldn't? I mean, that's what socialism is all about, isn't it? You mentally ill and you sit and watch TV and you indulge in sexual fantasies and you're a Jehovah's Witness or you're a Buddhist and you've got guns and you're voting for Trump or you're voting for Biden. As long as you can stay in a continuous fantasy world, that's what America's turned into. It's a lot losing its moral compass was a long time ago. This would be no different whatsoever from the Obama-Biden supporting Buddhist in Boulder, liberated by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, or the liberal Bhagwan Sri Rajneesh, tantric yoga Buddhist sex orgies in Oregon back in the 70s. where they took over a town and they were poisoning the district attorney. They're poisoning each other. They were, a criminal organization, just like David Koresh. They had guns when the FBI was going to go in and raid their biological weapons lab. This is religion in America. This is spiritual enlightenment. And I had people, there was a Netflix special, like 6-part, called Wild Country on Rajneesh. They kicked him out of India because he was a criminal, but they have all these enlightened people. I have enlightened Buddhist people saying, oh, the FBI are fascists. What did they, so they should have been able to poison each other and poison a district attorney because they're breaking they're taking over a town in Antelope and getting rid of the townspeople, taking over their property, everything else. That you figure, you own the government, you can do anything, you can write any laws you want. In other words, other than the labels liberal or conservative, sexual perversions considered in the 1880s to be signs of terminal mental illness were taken to be indications of spiritual enlightenment, ascendance to all-powerful human, godlike human form. In reality, these are delusions of grandeur accompanied by narcissistic personality disorders. These charismatic cults that are right, left, center, you name it. Sigmund Freud, as one example, was obviously a narcissistic personality disorder. The difference between narcissistic disorders of the past and those today is that today they're created by AI technology. See, Freud, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I mean, Freud considered psychoanalysis was a science. Well, he believed, how did he psychoanalyze himself? Exactly. He was the only person that didn't need psychoanalysis because he psychoanalyzed himself. Well, he did that with cocaine. And he had a surgeon friend who he idolized. He called the Kepler of biology, whose name was Wilhelm Fleiss. And Freud turned over one of his patients to Fleiss, who butchered her, thinking her hysteria was in her nose. That's where the psychoanalytic cure is in physical organ in your nose, your sinuses. So this is how sane Sigmund Freud is. But it's very easy to diagnose like that kind of charismatic, hysteric personality. He also wanted to stay in Vienna and not relocate to England because he preferred German culture. He didn't want to have anything to do with the inferior English. So he's a Nietzschean through and through. In 1969, NASA launched the first rocket to the moon manned by human astronauts. There are disputes in some quarters that they actually arrived on the moon. That's the Stanley Kubrick moon landing, right? However, it can't be disputed that they returned safely. Yesterday, NASA was all set for the first moon launch in 50 years, carrying mannequins and a Snoopy plush toy. They failed to even get it off the launch pad because it was leaking gas. 36 years ago, NASA killed the 7 astronauts aboard the space shuttle Challenger, 73 seconds into its flight, which presumably explains the failed launch yesterday carrying only mannequins, along with no longer referring to the rockets as space shuttles. That's another delusion that we have of omnipotence. The Elon Musks, whoever thinks we can't get a rocket, the first one in 35 years, can't launch it. The last one blew up 73 seconds into its flight because of a defective O-ring. And that we're somehow going to be ferrying. Where's the money coming for all of this when people can't afford their electricity bills and they're being thrown. So there's a complete disconnect between the fantasy world. That I don't know who's not seeing this. There's a complete disconnect between the fantasy world of an Elon Musk and Joe Rogan or whoever's interviewing him and worshiping all of this stuff, and we're driving electric cars. How are they getting? Where's the energy coming for them to get manufactured from what, solar panels? Where's the electricity coming from for this new electrical grid that's going to run electric cars so we stop global warming, which we have no control of anyway. We're already at maximum. I don't even know where to begin with. I mean, the that's the beast system. Like, human beings have been taken over by fantasy and illusion. The future of an illusion that Freud was talking about is the illusion Freud's living in. Is the illusion, I don't know if anybody's had psychoanalysis, but I've had, they're the most delusional people. They're living inside of each other's uh, psychological sexual fantasies because, I was abused, and false memories. You start making up all this stuff because the narcissism, the more self-important you are and the more, you've been abused by everyone, toxic masculinity, and if you're black, it's white oppression, and if you're Asian, I don't, who knows what abuses children are subject to, and we're gonna uh, cure all that with drugs and electroshock treatments. And back in the old days, they did lobotomies. That was the Kennedy family, or Alfred Stieglitz, the father of modernism, American modernism, because there's just a lack of recognition that human beings are not in charge of anything. They don't have godlike powers. They don't have. They're not gods. They're not capable of utopia. And violence is certainly no way to the achievement of it. And redistributing the wealth, how's that going to work? Because it's being you see where it's being redistributed. That any human beings imagine these brilliant scientific geniuses capable of creating SpaceX shuttles carrying people back and forth from a colony on Mars is a testimony to the delusional psychoses delivered by the VR helmet pseudo-reality that the majority of Americans apparently live in. At least the ones who think we're going to defeat the Russian military in Ukraine and any day now be wearing our VR helmets as our AI-operated, autopiloted electric cars deliver us safely from home to office in the central business districts of Democrat-run cities, where homeless people and drug gangs are, looting and burning and taking over whole city blocks, and green lighted by the mainstream media. So it's all destructive, and it's all by design, and it's all done through this, what Stephen Hawking was talking about and sees as the dangers of AI. And if you're a biblical believer like myself, it's Satan. AI is another word for the devil in prophecy, and he is taking over as the Antichrist in Rome. And all the prophecies are coming true. And my recommendation is always the same thing: is turn it off, turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. turn off your AI helmet, turn off your, unplug your brain from the neural link. Then you'll have freedom. The freedom from false reality, freedom from delusional thinking. I conclude by mentioning the state of delusional American Christians as represented by the YouTubers calling themselves the Babylon Bee, who, when interviewing the owner-creator of a fleet of space shuttles, Elon Musk, asked if he would accept Jesus Christ as his Savior. During the interview, the delusional condition of American Christians is that they think if somebody says they're a Christian, then this magically makes them one. This is an interview on December 31st, 2021. Musk flippantly replied, "Sure, why not?" You know, yeah, I believe in Jesus Christ, your Savior. Yeah, sure, why not? What the heck? I don't know, read the Bible or know anything about him. Success of the Christians, we've converted another person that doesn't know who Jesus is to Christianity. So less than 2 months later, February 3rd, 2022, Forbes magazine, 40 of the 49 satellites launched by SpaceX were destroyed by geomagnetic storms a day after their launch. That's 44 days after the interview. 4 months later, June 3rd, Forbes reported Tesla stock lost 40% of its value overnight, wiping out $75 billion in market capital, right? My sense is that 40% market drop sounds about right when this fantasy VR bubble implodes and the delusional industrial West is plunged into a direct confrontation with reality, both spiritual and material. Who knows? Perhaps even the delusional Christians in the Babylon Bee fantasy world might wake up, along with the delusional people listening to them. Everything's funny. Everything's a joke. The Christians, you know, you have to be personable and funny and tell folky tales. The mention of hell, or the mention of Satan, or the mention of demons, or the mention of the reality of the law and the discipline and fasting and all this is never going to come out of the mouths of the vast majority of this happy hour church, which is living on the edge of the tribulation period. The tribulation is a time of sorrow, and it's a time of knowing that we need the Lord as our Savior. So it's not a time of jubilation. It's not a time of renewal and revival and speaking in tongues. And God's not listening to a pleasure-seeking Zoom church and let's go out to the ball game and let's watch all this TV and dress really nice and get our SUVs and go out on on vacation and just wave our Trump flags or that's what does this political insanity have to do with Jesus Christ? Is precisely nothing. The relationship between Jesus and a disciple of his is intimate. That's the intimacy you want, not the intimacy with your own fantasy world where you create a sense of power and a sense of blissful autoerotic, like I say, onanism. That's the central message of Duchamp. That's the central message of Dali, the great masturbator, and the surrealists, l'amour fou and Eros c'est la vie. That's the beast system. Karl Marx was a Satanist. It's in the archives. Lenin was a Satanist. Engels was a Satanist. There's a couple books. The best one is Satan and Marxism by Richard Wurmbrand, who was a Christian who was tortured under the communists in Romania in the most horrific ways, the worst tortures you can imagine. I don't want to go into that, but I do want to say that that book and The Devil and Karl Marx was written not too long ago. This information is historical information, and it's really important to know that Satan is behind communism. I mean, you get how many, tens and tens of tens, 100+ million people killed in Russia and communist China, and we want to have a socialist Marxist system here. That's why my unfortunate visions and dreams and have been for years, and it's in my work, that this is an oncoming civil war that's escalating as people are being driven into desperation by food shortages that are just starting and hyperinflation that's all being done by the design of the 1% who are secluded in underground bunkers and off, like Obama is buying all this propane. So he's energy independent. And where's his house? It's right along the shore. He's not worried about global warming. None of these people with beachfront property, they're not seeing their beaches erode and fall. There's another book, I don't know what his name, that's just come out on that the whole global warming thing is a con job. And who are the people that are so disturbed about global warming? They're flying around in their jets, back and forth, and year in and year out. What if everybody's flying around in a private jet to fight global warming? That sounds about right. All right, over and out. Amen. God bless everyone.